introduction. Unparalleled, actually. He's my good friend. He tells a story about me. I think it's apocryphal. When I said the thing about your mother.
That was a great story.
We can maybe tomorrow he'll tell it. Or Saturday for those of you who are here. Hi, so thank you so much for inviting me and everyone who put in all this work to make this evening and the subsequent things I'm doing here happen, and all of you for coming. I've been saying I have such strong memories of Tucson and the Dalai Lama and being here when he was here, and it's quite fantastic, actually. So I wanted to, we'll have a little time to practice tonight. I'll speak some, and we'll have time for questions, all of which will be revealed on the camera, but don't feel shy. Whatever. As many of you probably know, I did go to India when I was 18 years old. It was 1970. And I went especially to learn how to meditate. I went because I didn't know where to find anything here. And when I had a very particular kind of desire. I wasn't really all that interested in the philosophical underpinnings of the practice. I certainly wasn't interested in finding a new identity or religion. I wasn't interested in rejecting anything else. I wanted to know if there were some very practical, pragmatic tools I might utilize that could really help me with the degree of suffering and unhappiness that I was in. And so that took a little while to find just that kind of situation. And I often say now, when I came back in 1974, finally I came back once in the middle and then went back to India. But when I came back in 1974, I was teaching. And when I'd be at a party or some social situation, and somebody would say to me, "What do you do?" I'd say, "I teach meditation." And they would kind of go, "Oh, that's really weird." Whereas now the most common response I get, even in some odd situation like coming back into the country through customs, somebody will say, "What do you do?" And I'll say, "I teach meditation." And the single most common response I hear is, "I'm so stressed out." I could really use some of that. Although my favorite response, which I also hear, is, "My partner should really meet you." That's good. And I also hear, which concerns me, "I tried that once, I failed at it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't stop thinking. I couldn't have only beautiful thoughts. I couldn't hold on to this serene mind state." All kinds of assumptions and expectations that I really think are off the point, but we might hold very strongly. And so in the course of these several, first the 2 evenings and then certainly the day, I'd like to really emphasize ways we can reclaim the understanding and not go off so much into these other ideas. When I was practicing, certainly the practice was described within an entire context. There was a path. And the point wasn't, this was within a Buddhist context, the point certainly wasn't to call yourself a Buddhist or declare that identity or reject anything else, but to understand the nature of that path as a really comprehensive vehicle for one's own freedom from suffering. So the core of the whole thing really was self-compassion. It goes back in a way to something the Dalai Lama said before his English got to be quite as good as it is, but I like the old version, when he said, "If you're going to be selfish, be a wise selfish." It's like, figure it out. We all want to be happy. This is considered a fundamental truth, that if we looked within even a very terrible action, we would find twisted and distorted this same urge that we have toward a sense of belonging, feeling at home in life, feeling a part of something greater than our limited sense of who we are, that we're ordinarily constrained by. I just led a Passover Seder for the first time ever And I was at the Seder for the first time in a good long time, and I found a Buddhist Jewish text to lead the Seder with, which was really fun. And they made a point of describing Egypt as a narrow place. That's the symbolic nature of that enslavement and liberation. Constraint, imprisonment, tunnel vision, being held in, the narrowness, in contrast to a kind of immensity of perspective, an expansiveness of heart and mind that we're all capable of. So it's considered to be a basic truth that we all want to be happy. And that's good. That's not something to be afraid of or ashamed of or feel squeamish about. It's the alignment of that urge with ignorance that is the problem. That it is not that easy to figure out where a more genuine, abiding happiness can be found. But if we can align that urge with wisdom rather than ignorance, then it becomes like a homing instinct for freedom. That wish to be free, to get out of that narrowness, being held in, being confined, will take us very far. So that's the nature of the path. It's not try to be kind of better than anybody else or better than we are right now. The whole grid has to do with suffering and the end of suffering. And so the entire engagement is a question of compassion for ourselves and for others. And also some sense of trust, which I'll talk about more tomorrow night, that we are actually capable of something, because it's not meant to be a theoretical exercise. It's really about what is considered a universal capacity within us that is never ever destroyed, no matter what we might go through. Capacity for understanding and connection and love and compassion and wisdom and so on. And so the whole nature of the meditative process, or of the whole path, is to put the building blocks in place so that we have much more immediate and direct access, so we can return to that capacity and nurture it and cultivate it. The word that we actually tend to translate from Pali, the language of the original Buddhist text, or Sanskrit, we usually translate it as meditation. It's a word bhavana. It actually means cultivation. And it's about cultivating the ground so that what we want can emerge. This is in contrast to what might be our perhaps more normal kind of grabby, clinging mentality, like, oh wow, it's only an hour. You know, if I can get an insight tonight, then that'd be really good. Then I don't have to come back tomorrow. I've got the package, I can go, I can tell everyone, I can show it off, whatever it might be. You know, that's how we're trained to be, to feel deficient and defective, and we want something, we're going to get it, and we're going to keep it, and we can't find it, you know, so there's a lot of stress just in that. And that's a very different energy than we're going to cultivate the ground and then let nature take its course. So that's more the context. And actually in Tibetan Buddhism, they have a phrase that I find very cute, which they use as a translation of whatever word they use for meditation. So they use cultivation sometimes because that is, I think, the most technically correct. But when we would say meditation, they all